Well, nobody said nothing about Mexicans or Indians. They just said the Chinese. It's fine if the Chinese becomes a part of America, but I didn't hear nothing about Indonesian Chinese. Come on, look at it the way I'm looking at it. He's so wrong, actually, is wild. No, but that's the argument that they're going to make. That's the legal argument that they're going to make. And I'm so sure of that, like, it's one that he has memorized. Okay? It is, he's going to say that the reason as to why birthright citizenship was implemented is because we're wrong for having let this happen, man. I know. Like, that's their constitutional interpretation. They have to have something to argue against it. And that's the entry point. And it's so certainly the entry point that Trump has memorized it. He knows nothing. Okay? He knows nothing. And this is the one thing that the know nothing will convincingly repeat, which means this is something that they have thought through, and Donald Trump thinks it's important enough to repeat over and over again.
On birthright citizenship for some time.
Number one, the 14th Amendment is very questionable as to whether or not somebody can come over, have a baby as a citizen.
And he hasn't been the only one to feel that way. Today, 40% of Americans think that the children of undocumented immigrants should not be given birthright citizenship. The meaning of the 14th Amendment didn't just come up for debate this year. It's actually an argument we've been having with ourselves as a country going way back. And a lot of that debate has been around this idea of who is supposed to get citizenship and who isn't. Like, for example,
the 14th Amendment meant to give citizenship to freed slaves. It was never meant to give citizenship to foreign aliens.
So, okay, is that true? What does the law actually say about birthright citizenship? And why have Americans been arguing over it for almost 200 years? So in this video, we're going to look at the 3 moments that made us a country where everyone born here is a citizen. We're going to start with none of these. First, we're going to start quickly here at the original U.S. Constitution, which said nothing about who is and is not a citizen. The idea that you're a citizen if you're born here, that existed, but it was more of a legal assumption at the time, inherited from English common law.
It was just simply understood if you were born in the realm, you were subject of the king.
Which itself came from this old Roman idea of jus soli, or the right of soil, as opposed to the right of blood, where citizenship is passed down from your parents. But because jus soli is more of a principle than a law, for the first 70-ish years of the U.S., there aren't really specific rules on who is and isn't born an American citizen. Until 1857. Just a few years before the Civil War, a time when the U.S. looks like this. Some states where slavery is legal, some where it isn't. And around this time, an enslaved man is taken by his enslaver from a slave state into free territory, and he eventually files a lawsuit saying that entering free territory should have made him a free man. His case eventually goes to the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., and it will come to be known as the Dred Scott decision. That's his name. And what the court says is neither Scott nor his family are free. And they add that he's also not a citizen. And in fact, they say that as a rule, a person of the African race cannot be a U.S. citizen by birth or otherwise.
Wait, the United States had slavery? Yeah, kind of f***ed up, right? Just found out. I'm as shocked as you are, really.
Supreme Court ultimately concludes part of the people of the United States, part of the citizenry of the United States.
At this time, there are many free black people in the free states of the U.S., but this court decision officially says that the country now has 2 classes of people. Those who are citizens or who can become citizens or whose children can be citizens, and those for whom none of that applies. And within a few years, ideas like that have literally torn the U.S. apart. These states secede. And these states go to war against them, partly to eliminate slavery and that 2-tiered system. And they win. So now the Civil War is over, and the victorious North decides to undo the Dred Scott case by passing the first American law to say that people born here are citizens, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Problem number one. The president at the time has some objections to this, and in a letter to Congress, he complains that in addition to African Americans, birthright citizenship is also going to make gypsies and Chinese people citizens. But Congress actually has enough votes to pass it over the president's objections.
That's how you know we were more Euro-minded back then. Like, we were so close in our association to the European continent, even at that point, you know, basically 100 years after we had left. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see. Because the anti like Romani, anti-Roma people attitude is just European. Most Americans don't even know what that is. Okay, they think gypsy. What do you mean, Gypsy Rose? Do you mean Gypsy Kings? The guys that sing, they do like, it seems like it's like a mariachi thing, you know? That's literally, Americans don't know that that's a thing.
And it becomes law. But problem number two.
There would always be the risk that the civil rights laws could be modified by a subsequent Congress.
A future Congress could theoretically repeal the law. So to make birthright citizenship a more permanent part of the law, they also decide to write it into a constitutional amendment, what will become the 14th Amendment. And it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. This is the language that will put birthright citizenship into the U.S. Constitution. But it will also eventually be the source of some debate because of this line, the qualifier, subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. For example, let's say an immigrant comes to the U.S. and then has a child. Are they subject to the U.S.'s jurisdiction? The amendment itself doesn't elaborate on this. But before Congress passes the 14th Amendment, as they debate it, they actually keep pretty good records of their conversations. For example, one senator asks the rest of the Senate, won't this children of...
Is it common that some people from your country do not know that you had slavery? No, that chatter was joking. Come on, man. Americans are stupid, but I think not that stupid. You know what I mean? Maybe in like, give it a decade, you know, we will abolish the Department of Education. Who knows? Who knows what happens after that? Oh my God. What a fantastic sidestep here. Breaking news. The FDA is planning to end most of its routine food safety inspections, according to CBS News. The FDA is reportedly planning to outsource their oversight to state and local authorities. This guy responded, ultimately, the market works. Inspectors easily duped. And if the product is bad or harmful, the business is sued and few buy its products. Oh my God. We deserve what's coming. We deserve it. Like, that guy is going to die from trichinosis. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Microplastics. Time for macroplastics. Oh, you think it was the generations that come after us, if we make it that long, will look back and go, dude, remember how good it was when, did you know that the average American citizen was eating one credit card worth of plastic? Think about how wonderful times were back then. That's what people are going to be saying. Yeah, they'll be reading on, I guess they won't be reading because there won't be any reading whatsoever, but like some AI machine will, in a sea of hallucinations, sometimes arrive at the correct historical assessment, where the AI machine will spit out information like, there was a time and place when Americans did not eat direct arsenic in their food supply. Okay? And they'll be like, there's no why. Arsenic make me strong. That's how I envision the median voter a couple decades into the future. Grok, tell me the arsenic in food is wrong. Grok spits out a bunch of hallucinations. Ay, we're so fucking cooked.
Of Chinese people, another senator says, yes, the child of an Asian is as much a citizen as the child of a European.
The debates over
woke. The law makes no such distinction, and the child of an Asiatic is just as much a citizen as the child of a European. Woke. Trump, more like woke bull, dude. What? Why did it fucking mute?
They understood that children of immigrants would become citizens at birth under this rule.
So it's with that understanding that birthright citizenship enters the Constitution. A big majority of Congress votes for it, but not everyone. For example, this guy, the one that was concerned about Chinese people becoming citizens, he does not vote for it.
Shock.
And that is actually important. The 14th Amendment becoming law doesn't necessarily mean that everyone likes it. Remember that. It's going to come back.
Yeah. There was, guys, shocked to find out there were racists in Congress in the 19th century.
Later. And after a quick break, we're going to talk about where that debate goes next and how it creates the 14th Amendment's first big test. Promise this will be fast. Hi, I'm Adam. I produced this video. If you're finding it at all interesting. Okay, so far in the story, it sounds like some support too. You can do that at vox.com/memberships. That's it. Thanks. Okay, so far in the story, we've seen both a president and a senator voice kind of the same concern about specifically Chinese people becoming American citizens. And this is actually pretty emblematic of this time period.
Well, nobody said nothing about Mexicans or Indians. They just said the Chinese. It's fine if the Chinese becomes a part of America, but I didn't hear nothing about Indonesian Chinese.
When there are a growing number of Chinese laborers in the U.S., along with a growing sentiment from some that they don't belong here. And in 1882, Congress passes the Chinese Exclusion Act. It says, among other things, Chinese immigrants can't become citizens. Though
this is also a historic smoke that we had for China.
it doesn't say anything about their children. And this is only meant to last 10 years, but it ends up being the first of several Chinese Exclusion Acts that remain in effect until 1943. And it's in that context that a few years after the Chinese Exclusion Act, a guy from San Francisco goes to visit his family in China.
This is what I was
talking about
earlier.
He comes back and is denied entry to the U.S. He says, but I was born here. I'm a citizen. And his case eventually goes to the Supreme Court. The guy's name is Wong Kim Ark. He's around 25, works as a cook, has a wife and child back in China, and his case is kind of the perfect test for the 14th Amendment, which, remember, says you're a citizen if you're born here and if you're subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. So here's the question. When Wong was born here to his Chinese immigrant parents who were not U.S. citizens, was he under the jurisdiction of and thus a citizen of the place he was born? Or was he a citizen of the place his parents were from? In 1898, the court makes their decision. Wong Kim Ark, citizen. The court says there's 3 types of people in the U.S. who are not subject to the country's jurisdiction: diplomats, certain Native Americans, and invading forces occupying territory. Their children are not citizens at birth. But other than that, partly because of what is written down in those congressional debate records, the court rules that
Don't tell Donald Trump that, because he will say that every Mexican is actually a foreign invader, and therefore every child born to at least one undocumented parent is no longer considered a citizen. That's how they tackle birthright.
Partly because of what is written down in those congressional debate records, the court rules that subject to the jurisdiction was intended to mean pretty much everyone here, including immigrants and their children. Everyone in the U.S. is subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S., and thus everyone born here is a citizen. And that basically remains the legal consensus to this day.
For more than a century, officials have acted in concert. It is the repeated recognition.
So if an American has a baby in another country, is it an American citizen? Yes. That's why, unfortunately, Ted Cruz is an American citizen. That's why, unfortunately, Mitt Romney is an American citizen. Natural and considered natural born too. That's why, unfortunately, Dan Crenshaw is an American citizen. That's why, unfortunately, John McCain is an American citizen. Oh my God. So many fucking Republicans were not born on U.S. soil. That's crazy.
By everyone within the legal system that this is the correct meaning of the 14th Amendment.
But a legal consensus. It's not necessary.
I got $100 on you being the landmark birthright citizenship Supreme Court case. Okay, bro, chill. Chill. That's crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I was born here, and everyone is an American involved in that process. Okay, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, chatters.
Necessarily the same as a popular consensus. In the 1980s and 1990s, the population of undocumented immigrants starts to go up, and birthright citizenship comes back as a political issue.
A growing chorus of Republican lawmakers are demanding another look at the 14th Amendment.
Subject to the jurisdiction, illegals don't fall under that, just like diplomats' children.
If the 14th Amendment had not existed, my great-grandparents would not have been citizens.
Disagreement over birthright citizenship is not new. In fact, I'm going to tell you one more story about the 14th Amendment. Way back when Congress originally voted for it, part of why an amendment giving citizenship to African Americans was able to pass with these kinds of margins is because, at the end of the Civil War, only these states were even represented in Congress. But for the 14th Amendment to become official, to become part of the Constitution, it also had to be ratified, voted for by 3/4 of all the state governments. And that did not happen at first. None of these states wanted to ratify it. And then Congress made them. They said these states will only be readmitted to Congress if they ratify this amendment. You have lost a war, and these are the terms of peace. And one way to look at that is that this amendment is kind of different. It isn't just some law from a long time ago. It's a treaty. It represented the leaving behind of an old country and the formation of a new one. Today, just like back then, the president is someone who doesn't agree that birthright citizenship should.
Chris Van Hollen was born in Pakistan? No fucking way. That's hilarious. God, so many fucking senators and congresspersons in general are military brats. I think that's probably why, right? Bernie Moreno, Tammy Duckworth, Chris Van Hollen, Ted Cruz, Mazuki Hirono, Michael Bennett was born in India? Michael Bennett? No! That's so funny. Mal Martinez, Cuba. John McCain, Panama Canal Zone. Yeah. Chris Van Hollen on that I will sacrifice my life for Pakistan shit. And that's just the senators. There's hella representatives. Or any of the politicians born in Turkey, we almost had one. Well, I guess Eric Adams, technically. Not born in Turkey, but honorary Turk.
Should apply to everyone. Even though, to be clear, a majority of Americans think it should. And once again, it seems like the final call will be up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which for more than 100 years has recognized again and again that birthright citizenship is the law. We'll see what happens this time.
Yeah, military bases are considered U.S. soil, technically.
The Supreme Court agreed to hear oral arguments in the case about ending birthright citizenship. How confident are you that the court will rule in your favor and allow that order to end birthright citizenship to go forward?
Well, you're just telling me that for the first time. I am so happy. I think the case has been so misunderstood. That case, birthright citizenship, is about slavery. If you look at the details of it, the signings of it, everything else, that case is all about slavery. And if you view it from that standpoint, people understand it. But for some reason, lawyers don't talk about it, the news doesn't talk about it. That's not about tourists coming in and touching a piece of sand and all of a sudden they're a citizenship. They're a citizen. That is all about slavery. And even look at the dates on which it was signed. It was right at that era, right after the Civil War. And if you look at it that way, the case is an easy case to win. And I hope the lawyers talk about birthright, citizenship, and slavery, because that's what it was all about. And it was a very positive, it was meant to be positive. And not for slavery, they use it for people that come into our country and they walk in and all of a sudden they become citizens and they pay a lot of money to different cartels and others. It's all about slavery, and if you look at it that way, we should win that case. Okay.